Hello. Joshua Parker. I am probably a heavy cannabis user. I'm also an avid runner. So I can tell you that affecting your lungs, probably a lot of research that still needs to be done, because I could probably pound in about 7 miles and, should go to 10, but anywho. So first I would like to talk about U.S. patent 6630507, owned by the United States federal government. It is about cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. I'm just going to read a little excerpt from the patent. Cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties unrelated to the NMDA receptor antagonism. This newfound property made cannabinoids useful in the treatment and paralysis of a wide variety of oxidation associated with diseases such as ischemic, age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular applications as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults, which is a restriction in blood supply, reducing oxygen to tissue, which is bad, such as stroke, trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia. So the United States government still has this patent, and we have an entire branch of government called the DEA dedicated to the eradication of this drug, along with other drugs, which has failed incredibly. I mean, we're all paying for it, still paying for it, all your money every year going into this little bucket and set on fire for no reason. On a plant that I would like to bring up, the Nixon administration, a man named John Elterman, I know I'm mispronouncing that, but the Nixon, I'm just going to read a quote of his. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people, which I'm one of them. You understand what I'm saying? We know we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and criminalizing them both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. And I know some of you have lived through that. I wasn't around. I was born in '89. But I know that the Attorney General had Ms. Linderbick come up and speak on his behalf, and she asked the question on why are we discussing this? We're discussing this because the very beginning of all of this prohibition was based off of fear and propaganda to benefit a few, not the scientific data that we're bringing out now and having these incredibly lengthy and wonderful discussions that we need to get over this prohibition. I mean, Jack Daniels is made in a dry county, in Tennessee. I visited there, and it's awesome. I mean, you should definitely go. But it's a dry county because the people of that county want it that way. And we still have a robust alcohol system alcohol regulation system that allows people to consume at their leisure. And yeah, some people choose to be irresponsible. Those people will always exist. There's no legislating for that. What the point is, we cannot continue to waste our money and time and resources on a plant that isn't as dangerous as people come out here talking about as it is. It's not. It is a medicine. It won't kill you because of the endocannabinoid system that every human being has. A lot of it's not talked about because the only way to really activate it is with cannabis. I know I can't remember his name, but he was representing one of the compassion centers. He talked about how chemistry can strip out all the components and the terpenes and the flavonoids. Well, what he didn't go into is that it's not as effective. There is a property called the entourage effect, where all the cannabinoids working together like a symphony is what makes it more medicinal. That's why things like Marinol and all these other, these regulated and approved FDA cannabis supplements do not work, because they strip out the natural components that allow it to integrate with our body. So, to say that 36 plants or 36 strains is enough is nonsense. I mean, there is a lot of data that still needs to be gathered and research to be done, but we do know enough that it's not dangerous to the human body. There is a lot that we would like to know more, but prohibition is preventing that. And one way we can do something about it federally is by legalizing it locally, by state, because the federal government doesn't listen to anyone, doesn't listen to any of us, doesn't matter. If you look, there's a chart, a very popular chart about the opinion of the American public and Congress's actions, and they're just not even nowhere close to each other. They just do whatever they want. But if state by state we legalize it to a point where it's just impossible for the federal government to do anything about it, they would just have no power to come in and enforce and regulate and bring a DEA into every state, then we can get the change that we deserve and want. We talked about how Mass passed it, and we had even Trump supporters supporting it as well. It's because it's a pretty understandable issue from people who are living, in those neighborhoods or living next to that grow house. Yeah, that I can understand. It could be annoying to have someone growing so much in their neighborhood. And I think that's something that they should go to referendum, and maybe that neighborhood will say, we don't want any growing in our neighborhood. And I think that's perfectly awesome. That's democracy. And yeah, it costs money, but what are we paying taxes for? We're paying taxes to make our lives easier so we can have a more civil environment for all of us. A lot of people worked very hard so that I could exist today, because I wouldn't if we didn't fight for civil rights. I wasn't a part of that. But I know there were people who were, because I'm standing here today. And I know that in the future, my kids won't grow up with prohibition like I have. And I'm going to ensure that happens. So, I think even though, there's a lot of issues. I know that we are afraid what the federal government may do. And even with expanding our dispensaries, that point of the DEA may want to come involved because we have more points of access, or that we're not entirely sure how we're going to handle our medical system because it was handled so poorly, and then to put in a regulation system, regulated system for, regular use, those are things that we need to hash out, but we need to actually get it onto the floor to hash it out, because right now, I'm going to go home, I'm going to smoke weed. I enjoy cannabis. It works for me because, I was on medication before, and that almost killed me. And that's when I discovered cannabis. And I just think it's pretty sad that we continue to kick the can down the road. And, I started this in 2015. I'm approaching 30, and I'm thinking about running for office, because it's, I'm going to have to. I know it can be done. I've helped someone almost take a seat. They lost by one vote in 2016, and being involved in that campaign and seeing how it works, it's like, yeah, I could do this. I can do this very well. I'm a computer programmer, so language is, it's second nature to me. I love the manipulation you can do with languages, and it's beautiful. So with cannabis, it's going to be a very unsure road, but not doing anything about people driving, or not giving the resources or acquiring the resources to deal with, how can law enforcement go after drug driving, isn't helping anyone. Because, we all could agree that law enforcement needs training to see how we can, dampen this. Or we need some way to educate people to know that, hey, maybe I shouldn't eat the whole cookie. Or maybe if I had too much, I should have something with a lot of sugar because that can bring the high down. Or chew peppercorns. That's something that you don't really hear unless you're around people in the cannabis community. Things like that can come up if we have the resources to do it. The cannabis market is here. And the only way we're going to transition to a system similar to what we have with alcohol, where it's available to anyone, is if we just start right now. We have all the tools we need to do it. It's tough. It's just not going to be easy. It's just going to be hard. But if Rhode Island gets on the board, then Connecticut, eventually the federal government is just going to have to drop it. And that's the only way we're going to get them to move with the times, because Canada's thinking about it. And, you know, if Canada does it, what are we going to do then? Put a wall around Canada? I mean, it's just, it's nonsense. You know, this... Well, and with that, I would also like to add in that I'm also a member of the Cannabis Chemistry Subdivision for the American Chemical Society, and you know, I was with them before they even became a subdivision, and now they're moving to become a full division because there's so much that needs to be done in terms of science and research and understanding. But with that being said, you know, we are, I think we're still allowing the fear of the past administrations and their gains to continue to influence us at our hindrance and not realize it. You know, I pay taxes too, and I would like those taxes to be used very efficiently. And even with the bad parts of, you know, legalizing, it still does not outweigh the fact that it needs to be done so we can continue to strengthen our democracy with the freedoms that we should all be able to enjoy. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Joshua? Thank you very much, Mr. Parker.